night may be long and the dark may be deep, but the answers are there to be found. Whether it's the normal, the abnormal, or the paranormal, you're in the right place. Let's go beyond reality.
We've got another great paranormal investigative-based show tonight with John Olson coming up. He is an investigator. He's written a couple books that chronicle strange occurrences in western part of the country. And we're going to talk about the books. We're going to talk about his investigations and his experiences. But did you hear this news story out of Florida? We often talk about, and we have people on the program that are part of the Church of Satan. That discussion. There's a lot of controversy when it comes to that, and we often bring this stuff up. But fortunately, it doesn't happen as often as people might think it does. But it happened, or it almost happened today. Two girls in I think it was a middle school, who consider themselves Satan worshipers, plotted to kill at least 15 of their fellow students in this particular middle school in Florida, according to police.
Middle school girls who believe themselves to be Satan worshipers? Where are their parents?
I know. They brought knives to school. They were going to do this with knives. And the way they were going to do it was they were going to stay in the girls' room, in the bathroom, and as girls would come in, one by one, they were going to kill them with the knives.
What is wrong with people?
They were 6th and 7th grade girls, and at 1:30 p.m. yesterday, the Bartow Police School Resource Officer, which was assigned to the school, was called into the principal's office because a teacher had discovered the girls. Basically, the teacher saw them with a couple strange objects, not knives, but it made the teacher suspicious enough to look a little bit more closely. And in their backpacks, they had a butcher knife, they had a pizza cutter, they had a knife sharpener, they had a bunch of other various utensils and knives, and they admitted their plot. They were going to sit there and wait till kids came in, and they were going to wait for the smaller ones to come in so that they could overpower them and make them their victims.
What is wrong with the world today?
I don't know. I mean, these kids were 11 and 12 years old. I mean, it reminds me of the case of the two girls that were supposedly influenced by Slender Man, and ended up stabbing one of their very, very close friends as a tribute to Slender Man. Fortunately, the girl survived. But man, and this goes a little bit further because according to police, these girls intended to slay these victims, and then they were going to drink their blood. That was their plan.
Now, do you think that it's non-involvement from the parents? I mean, my children never really had any issues with them, especially no violent issues like this or just strange things of that nature. And we've always been very involved in their lives and very open to discussion. And it truly makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Well, I often think that too. I feel the same way. I'm close to my kids, and I've always been a big part of their. Right? The ones you know. The ones I admit to. I've always been a big part of everything they do, whether they like it or not. I've been a big part of it.
Same here. Yeah.
And so we've grown up close there. They've grown up close that way. But so you assume that the kids that stray in this particular way, their parents aren't paying attention. But then again, I hear stories of, and maybe it's just the way it's portrayed, but I hear stories of kids that do similar things that have an idyllic family life, and which makes you scratch your head even more. How can they be in a very, very loving, comfortable home and still stray that way? So I suppose it's not isolated to those that aren't being paid attention to by their parents, but you'd have to think that the more a parent is involved, the more likely that they would avoid these types of things.
Well, and that was the thing when I got involved in TV, and you remember this, Jim. You and I started hanging out very shortly after. The whole thing was I never wanted to miss a holiday, a birthday, a family thing. I never missed a father-daughter dance. I was here all the time for everything of any importance. I was here for all the kids' games and you name it, and still staying involved because that was always a fear. You hear about a lot of these celebrities out there who spend all this time away from their family. Their families fall apart. Their kids get involved in drugs, this, that, the other thing. And it was a terrifying thought for Chris and I. And we've always been we've made sure we've always been there for everything. And you've always been the same. And that's why our families have always gotten together so well. And we've gone on family vacations together and everything. I don't know. But yeah, you do hear sometimes, people are still involved in the kids' lives and just something is mentally unstable with that child.
Yeah, and one final point here. The police say that they don't think the parents had any knowledge of this, and I can imagine that would be true, or they probably would have intervened. But you got to keep an eye on your kids, stay involved in their lives, and when you see something, some antisocial behavior or anything that might give you a tip to the fact that they might be straying in some way, you got to step in, and if you need professional help, you got to get that as well. On
a lighter note, Cher believes that Sonny Bono comes and visits her.
On a lighter note, you say Cher. That's hilarious. Yeah.
But the friendly ghost of Sonny Bono visits Cher, according to her.
Now, Sonny Bono, didn't he crash into a tree?
95, yeah.
In 1995, is that when it was?
Yeah.
He was skiing somewhere. He was a congressman at the time, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, yeah.
He was actually an up-and-coming politician. He's often portrayed as kind of the fool of the group. If you ever saw the TV show they had, that variety show they had for a while, which was popular in the 70s, he's always kind of the bumbling fool, the comedic member of the team. But he was actually kind of the brains behind Sonny and Cher. He wrote some of their music and managed their business affairs. And he went on. Looked like he was going to have a great political career, and then he obviously couldn't avoid the tree going down a ski slope, which is why I don't ski, by the way.
Well, and even after when they got divorced, they were always still close with one another. But Cher claims that sometimes she'll walk into one of the many rooms in her Malibu house and look up at her chandelier and the lights are on, but she's absolutely sure that she didn't turn them on. In fact, the power switch is still flipped off. She also knows that the house can't be haunted by earlier inhabitants either because she built it herself. Instead, she's sure about this, she claims. It's her ex-husband, Sonny, who died in a skiing accident in 1995. He's not haunting her. He's messing with her. He's playing with them. She told TMZ it's a totally peaceful thing, and she likes it. It's Sonny the friendly ghost. And if anybody's ready for Halloween this year, of course, it's Cher. She claims that she loves ghosts. And it's what she told a recent Reddit AMA. I prefer ghosts to some people.
Did you hear the new song they're going to release?
Oh God, what?
I Got Boo Babe.
Oh, I Got Boo Babe. Oh, wah. Thanks for playing. Hey, if you haven't yet, make sure you head over to facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio. I'm still laughing at that one. Which is kind of silly. But head over to facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio and like the Facebook page for us. Then head to beyondrealityradio.com. You can find all the stations we air on across the country. The list is constantly being updated with new stations being added all the time, so check it often. If we don't air on a station in your area, or even if we do and you want to make it easier on yourself, grab the smartphone apps. They're free, 100% free for iPhone and Android. You can listen to the new shows live. You can catch past shows. You can join the online chat and more right there from the app. Or any night we're live, feel free to click the Listen Live button or the Listen Live and Chat button and listen right there from the website while browsing the rest of the internet. If you download the show from iTunes or anywhere else, do us a favor and rate it for us. It helps push it forward, makes it easier for people to find. And I'm getting ready to laugh because every time I look at you, you still got that smile on your face from that punchline. I'm biting my inside of my cheeks here.
Oh, yeah. Somebody said it was dad jokes. It's kind of a dad joke, isn't it?
That's probably
one more thing I want to mention just before we go to break here, and then we'll be bringing our guest in, is this weekend is Scaricon. That's where I'm headed tomorrow, actually. And our Bruce, who's taken on the nickname The Shark, will be in for Jason and I tomorrow night for the program.
Where did he get that nickname?
I don't know. The chat named him The Shark because I think Bruce on Finding Nemo wasn't the shark named Bruce?
I
think that's where it comes from. But anyway, Scaricon's this weekend. It's going to be a great time at Turning Stone Casino near Syracuse, New York. And I'm going to do something just kind of cool here. Anybody who's listening that wants to attend, there's a promo code. If you go online to purchase tickets at Scaricon.com, the promo code is just BRR, obviously for Beyond Reality Radio, BRR, and it'll save you 50% on admission.
Oh, look at that.
See?
Listening to BRR, you're already saving money.
You're saving money. This is an economical show to listen to.
Well, that's it, yeah. If we don't torment you with bad dad jokes.
And that's all right. Actually, somebody in chat just said also that Bruce was the name of the mechanical shark in Jaws, which is where Finding Nemo got the name for their shark, too, as a tribute to that.
I think for an opening, then, when Bruce fills in, you should play, like, the Jaws theme. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I think instead of giving him the whole BRR thing, just give him his own little little intro theme.
I love that idea. I think it's excellent.
He probably won't, though. So.
I think it's an excellent idea.
We're going to be talking. Our guest tonight is none less than John Olson, paranormal investigator, and we're going to be discussing his duties of paranormal investigators, his experiences, stories, and much, much more. So make sure you tune in. The phone number is going to be 844-687-7669. Again, toll free at 844-687-7669. Give us a shout if you have any questions for John or us about the paranormal, ghosts, hauntings, anything of that nature. I mean, it's right around Halloween. Perfect time for it all. All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break. A lot more to come. You listen to Jason and JV Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Did you know that online retailers like Amazon have constant deals that can save you money on the things you buy every day? It's no joke. Save 40%, 50%, even 80% on great products, and all you have to do is know about them. Noodle Shark is the way to be alerted when something good is coming your way. Noodle Shark is the social media page that lists great deals that not only save you money, but give you the deals before anyone else has them. All you have to do is find Noodle Shark on Facebook. Search it as The Noodle Shark. That's The Noodle Shark, because you deserve to save too. Become a shark and save. Welcome back to the show. It's Beyond Reality Radio, Jason and JV. The phone number for later in the conversation, and we hope you'll share some of your paranormal stories with us, whether they're in the Western United States or anywhere for that matter. But the phone number is 844-687-7669. And so if you've got something that's occurred to you over the course of your life or someone else in your family, we'd love to have you share that story with us because our guest, John Olson's into this.
And it's getting towards Halloween. We need some scary stories.
Yeah, we really, really do need to be titillated with some scary stories.
That was a big word.
I know. That's one I chose specifically for the moment, too. Hey, John. John Olson's our guest tonight. He is a paranormal investigator. He's the author of a couple books. One is called Stranger Bridgerland, and the other is Beyond Stranger Bridgerland, and his website is strangerbridgerland.com. John, welcome to Beyond Reality Radio. Great to have you on tonight.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me on and talking about some of the strange things that's gone on.
Oh, thanks for coming on. We look forward to this.
So you're from northern Utah. Now, nothing strange ever happens in Utah, does it?
You'd be really surprised. I know that, wherever you're from, if you do some searching and digging, there's stuff that goes on. But there has been a lot that has happened, both in my life and in people that I've, been able to interview and talk to and help out. It's really kind of a strange place.
And you've actually started your path years ago. In fact, your childhood was kind of influenced by some of these types of occurrences. Tell us how you developed your interest in the paranormal.
So, growing up, I grew up in a small town in northern Utah, and the home that I grew up in was well over 100 years old. It was built in about 1880, roughly. And I remember about the age of 8 years old, I started recognizing things going on in my house that didn't happen at my friend's house. And I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than me, and a younger brother who's a year younger than me. And we started talking about it around that time, and the experiences we were having, they included stairs that go from the main floor up to the second floor. There were often somebody running up and down the stairs and nobody being there. You would catch voices or conversations going on. There were things that would go missing and not show up again for a month or a couple days, or just a lot of different strange things like that went on that really piqued my interest and my sister's interest. And we tried to talk to my parents about it, but they were very adamant that we don't talk about that with other people. I think that, I know that their fear at the time, being from a small town, you're worried that people are going to start, thinking you're crazy and, not understanding what was going on. And at the time, back then, it really wasn't talked about as much openly, I guess, paranormal experiences. So, we had to kind of keep it to ourselves for quite a while. I remember how I got into investigating and actually interviewing people. When I was in my teens, I would have friends over, and they would actually have experiences of their own in the house, just visiting. And I remember one time I was upstairs, and a friend of mine and I were studying for a test, and all of a sudden she threw her book down, and she stared at me, and I stopped what I was doing, and I looked at her, and I said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "What's going on?" And I was like, I'm not sure what you're talking about." And she says, in the 30 minutes we've been here, something has come up and down the stairs 3 times, but there's nobody on your stairs. What's going on? And, at that time, after it's happened for so long, it kind of becomes background noise, and I hadn't even really registered it. But I finally, said, well, my house is haunted, and she found that interesting and fascinating. And before long, when I was out with friends or at a party, inevitably one of my friends would say, "Hey, John's house is haunted. You got to have him tell stories about his house." And so I started sharing the stories. And before long, people started coming to me and saying, "Hey, I heard that you had experiences. I want to share my experience with you." And at that point, I started writing them down and talking to people and collecting these experiences. And as I grew up and got older, it kind of grew into even being able to help some people that would come to me and say, "Hey, I think my house is haunted. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that." And just kind of going into trying to help people out who were having experiences.
And that's what it's all about. But and we're going to get into a lot more of that. We got to take a hard break, John. But we're talking with John Olson, paranormal investigator, about paranormal investigating, his experiences, stories, and much more. You listen to Jason and JV Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Once again, we'll open up the phone lines in the second hour of the program, so you can call and share your paranormal experience with us. People all over the place, Jay. I mean, for years, they come up to us, they tell us their stories, and we'd love to have some of those same people or others share them with us on the radio tonight.
Absolutely, and it's toll-free at 844-687-7669. Again, 844-687-7669.
And our guest tonight is no stranger to hearing these stories. John Olson is a paranormal investigator. His book is called Stranger Bridgerland, and he's got a follow-up to that book called Beyond Stranger Bridgerland. You can find information on both books at strangerbridgerland.com. That's almost a bit of a tongue twister, John. What is Bridgerland, by the way?
Well, Bridgerland is actually the northern part of Utah. It's named after Jim Bridger, who was a famous trapper and explorer. He was one of the first ones to come through and map it a little bit and help the pioneers that came along later and point out where the best places to settle. So they kind of, I guess, unofficially, the northern part is called Bridgerland, and different things in the valley and in northern Utah is named after Jim Bridger and Bridgerland. So that's where I got that, with my original one being mostly stories from northern Utah. I went with Bridgerland. So.
And most of the stories in both books are from that particular region, or do you expand from there?
I did expand from there. After my first book, I got quite a few more people that came to me from all the way around the West. So I have stories again from Utah and from Wyoming and Idaho and some from Nevada. And even now, with the release of this book, I've been interviewing people from as far away as Texas and Colorado for more stories. It's just kind of spreading from there.
Let's go back to your childhood. You said that this stuff was happening to you in your home. There was quite a bit of stuff going on. And you said at one point that you got kind of used to it, so you didn't always notice it all of the time. But at the same time, you said your parents discouraged discussing it. What was their opinion of it that made them want to discourage it? Is it that they didn't believe it? Were they experiencing it too, and they just didn't want anybody to know it was happening? What was their position on that?
At the time, my dad, he was adamant when he spoke to us children that the house was not haunted. He would say, the house is not haunted, and you don't go around telling people that our house is haunted because, they'll think we're crazy. And later on, I found out that both my parents were having their own experiences at the time, and that they knew there was something going on. Interesting enough, I remember when I was around 10 years old, because it's an older home, at the time they only had one bathroom, and it was centralized in the house, but there were two entrances, one for everyone else and then one that went into my parents' bedroom. And I came home from school one day, and my dad is boarding up the side that goes into their bedroom and turning it into a wall. And I remember asking him, I'm like, why are you doing that? I thought you liked having access from your bedroom and everything. And all I got at that time was, oh, this is how we want it. Don't worry about it. But come to find out later on, it was because no matter how many times they shut that door, my mother would wake up in the middle of the night, and the door would be open with this figure, this gentleman that we called him the tall man for any better explanation. But he would be standing in the doorway, staring at my parents, and my mother just didn't want that anymore. So she told my dad to board up that side, and hopefully that would stop. And so they put a wall up on that side. But it was interesting at the time because their explanation was, well, this is how we want it. But to find out that they had also seen some of the things that we had was a good thing to finally open up and have them open up.
Well, but also I'm sure that they just didn't want to bring it up to you kids at that time for fear issues. But when they were seeing these things, were they getting any sort of feeling off of it, a negative feeling, something of that nature? Or
we never really got a negative feeling from it. We never really have. I think we were lucky in the fact that it was not a negative entity. I believe there's 3 ghosts in the house after all of the research that I've done and everything. And nothing negative really ever happened. The vast majority of it, if anything, was mischievous. What we as kids coined as the stair monster because of the noises on the stair. We just called it the stair monster. But he seems to have just been extremely. He likes to play pranks. That's basically what it is, and he always has. And it would be interesting because you go months with nothing and then a few weeks of just quite a bit of stuff going on. And it happened to everybody in the family. And my parents still live there, and there is still things going on at the house.
So you had a number of experiences as a child in your home. And at some point, you said you started to talk to friends about their experiences. People started to come to you because you kind of had the reputation to being the guy that lived in the haunted house. But at some point, you decided to take a more academic look at all of this and a more investigative look into this. When did that happen for you?
So that kind of happened, I guess, just through time of when I would meet with people and also the time between when I really understood by about 8 or 9, 10 years old that I knew something was going on in the house, but I really wasn't allowed to speak outside of the home about it. I did as much research as I could as a kid on the paranormal. My library, I remember, they got those black Time Life books. I don't know if you remember those or not.
Yeah, I actually
but
do.
I probably wore out my library's version of that myself just by reading those over and over and over again and anything I could possibly get my hands on. And at the time, there really wasn't much in the way of investigating that I was aware of. I know that there had been some going on, but now I know that there were people investigating at the time, but it was really new to me, and I was kind of going along and learning along by myself with just from my own experiences and then talking to people about what was going on with them or their home, and it just kind of has gone from there.
And then, to fast forward this a little bit, and we'll get into some more details about all of this, but you decided to write a book. I mean, a lot of people investigate the paranormal. Not a lot of people write books about it.
Right. Well, I've gathered so many stories, and even way back in the day when I first started interviewing people, I knew that I wanted to write a book. I didn't know exactly how to do that way back then. And so, I had a stack of stories, and my wife came to me. I had remarried about 3 years ago, and she came to me and she was talking to me about the stack that I had and the stuff that I did. And she's like, "You really need to just do it. Just write your book." And so, I went through and picked some of my favorites for the first book and wrote it. And it just really helped to open up even more people with their experiences. And it's been just such a positive experience for me, not only for meeting people and continue to do what I love, but it's just kind of solidified the work and the experiences that I've had and into something that I can hold. And it's been great.
Well, and in your books, you cover everything from stories from Bigfoot, Grinning Man, UFOs, black-eyed kids, and more. So what are some of the experiences of black-eyed kids that you've actually heard or dealt with? So
one of the first ones that I collected, there's been about 4 or 5 that stories that I have that I've interviewed people who have had that experience in this area. I still have about 2 or 3 of them where I have to get their permission, and sometimes they give me the story and won't give me the permission yet to publish it. But one of the first ones that I got, this lady came to me through a friend who told her that I did this, and she said that she had a story that she hadn't shared very much, but she wanted to. And I sat down with her, and she explained how she was a student at Utah State, that's here in northern Utah, and it was in wintertime, and she wanted to go to the movies, and she was supposed to go with her roommates, but her roommates couldn't go, and she decided to go on her own. And she went to a late-night movie and enjoyed the show, and as she left the theater, she was walking to her car, and it was cold and a little snowy, and she noticed over across the parking lot there is a mall, and the mall's shut down because this is around 10, 11 o'clock at night. But she saw 2 kids standing there, and she thought that was really strange. But, she walked to her car and got in, and it was iced up a little bit, so she started it and turned on the heater and was sitting trying to warm up. And all of a sudden there was a knock on the window, and she looked up, and here's these 2 children. And she noticed they were in kind of homemade clothes. She recognized that the clothes they were in were homemade, that they hid their face from her a little bit. And the youngest one talked to her first and asked her if they could get a ride home. And she said it was interesting because normally, she would have, any time let kids into her car. It was cold outside. Just something inside of her said, do not let these kids in the car. And so she made an excuse and made some excuses, but then the older one became very persistent, and it was at that time that she saw that they had black eyes, and she got very afraid and took off and drove all the way home and woke up her roommates to cry on their shoulder and talk about it. But she had never heard of black-eyed kids, and even when I talked to her, she didn't realize that other people had that experience as well. And so when I explained to her that is something that's happened to other people, but at the time I wasn't aware that it had happened in this area, but it kind of was a relief to her. But she was just really shaken up by the whole experience.
Well, it's something like that will definitely shake you up. We're talking with John Olson. He's a paranormal investigator, author of 2 books, one called Stranger Bridgerland and the other Beyond Stranger Bridgerland, which takes an expanded look at things that have occurred in the western part of the United States, specifically northern Utah. The website is strangerbridgerland.com. We're going to continue the conversation in just a few moments.
Yeah, and the phone number is 844-687-7669, toll-free 844-687-7669. You're listening to Jason and JV Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Welcome back to the show. It's Beyond Reality Radio. Jason and JV, our guest tonight, John Olson, who's a paranormal investigator. We've got a short segment here, and I want to jump to the phone lines, try to pepper in some of these phone calls. People want to share experiences with us. This is Keith in Kansas. Hey, Keith, welcome to Beyond Reality Radio.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Oh, this is first time caller, and I've been trying to get on coast to coast, but he's been doing a lot of these.
Well, we'll take your call. What's on your mind? We'll take your call, Keith. What's on your mind?
Hey, man, I don't know where to start, but it's pretty phenomenal what I'm going through for the last 17 months, and I'm a Christian, but anyway, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start this. I'm dealing with Satan and his demons.
You're dealing with Satan and demons? Is that what you're saying?
Demons, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And it all started back in July. I got it written on my door here. Actually, I'm in a tough shed. It's like a building. It's an underdwelling building where you put stuff in your shed. And it's got a loft in it, and I actually made a little room out of the new one. My mom bought a new one, and I'm hanging out in this one. I got all my stuff in here, and I'm an artist, and I draw, and I ride a bike at 57 years old. I'm hiker, I'm bipolar, I'm HAD, and anyway, the fire started back in 2017 on July. It's already been past July this year, and that's a year, and I'm going on another, what is it, 6 more months.
Yeah, Keith, before, I don't want to run out of time here on you. What are the symptoms? What makes you think that Satan and demons are affecting you? What's happening?
Well, when you have your clothes all and images of faces and bodies and all this other stuff, and they're on my plastic on the wall, blowing up, and then I used to have ventilation, and they pop through. I see faces, I see images of, I can actually see these people. These demons.
You're actually seeing them manifest.
Yeah, the demonic situation going on. It kind of scared me at first, but see, I'm hard of hearing, so I got them. You know, I didn't know what demons were, so I went on the computer and got all the information I needed to know about them, so I get on top of it. And my hearing is very, very, very hard to hear, and I think I got them because they don't know what I go through when I can't hear. So the other symptoms are they take your clothes and they make images out of them, and then they move stuff around.
They take your clothes and make images out of them?
Probably Lucifer. Probably Lucifer is doing that. He's got more power than the demons, but I know there's 72 of them. 72 is solemn. Right now, I looked at, and I didn't know they looked like that. They sure do look like that.
Well, Keith, do this then. Yeah. Do this. If you go to tapsfamily.com, it's tapsfamily.com. You can find a group, a TAPS family group that's in your area that can at least come out and try to verify what you're going through and help you out through that, okay?
Okay, well, I go with P. Johnson County Mental Health, too, so they're helping me with it, too. So, this ain't no joke, bro.
No, that's...
I think there's no human to come out here and sit with me to help me to visualize and hear this stuff.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Go to tapsfamily.com. We've got groups in your area that can assist you on that. Sorry to cut you, but we got to take a break.
Yeah, and when we come back, we'll get John's take on that as well.
Exactly. So, all right, our guest is John Olson, paranormal investigator. We're discussing the duties of a paranormal investigator, his experiences, stories, books, and so much more. You listen to Jason and JV, Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this. It's Wednesday on the West, Thursday on the East. Many are stuck somewhere in between. Welcome to Beyond Reality Radio with me, Jason Hawes, and the always awesome JV Johnson.
We're going to get to more of your phone calls in just a few minutes, so if you're waiting on hold, please be patient. We will get to those calls. A reminder that tomorrow night, Tom Hatzis will be with us. Tom's been on the program before. He's a psychedelic historian and educator. He'll be talking about microdosing, harm reduction, science, and magic. All that stuff will be on tomorrow night's program. Of course, Friday will be a best of, and next week's going to be a lot of fun because we're getting into Halloween week.
Yes, we got Mr. Lobo, the mysterious host of the late-night movie program Cinema Insomnia. He's going to be hanging out with us, and so make sure you tune in. It's when we talk about pretty much all just bad movies. Well, he says they're not just bad, they're just misunderstood. I don't know, man. Some of them are just bad. Which
makes them fun.
Yeah, well, it does make
in a lot
fun.
of cases. It does anyway.
It does make them fun. I got to give it that.
Before we bring our guest, John Olson, back in, I just want to mention that we just ran out of time with our caller in the last hour, Keith. And, there's a couple things that need to be said about that. First of all is that if Keith, if you're still listening, you really should seek some help to at least get some verification as to what you were saying is actually what's going on. And you said you were working with some officials or some mental health officials, and you should certainly continue with that and explore all options here. We didn't mean to cut you off, but we just ran out of time, so we had to take the break.
Yeah, and you can find that. Just go to, either the AtlanticParanormalSociety.com or TAPSFamily.com, and that'll list all the groups across the country. And I know we've got one in your area, so contact them and see if somebody can come out there and try to verify what's going on.
All right, so before we take some more calls, let's bring John back in. By the way, John is the author of Stranger Bridgerland and Beyond Stranger Bridgerland, and his website is strangerbridgerland.com. And John, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add as a follow-up to Keith's phone call in the last hour before we take another call?
No, not necessarily. I just want to reiterate what you did. Definitely, you want to try and get some help. Continue to work, like you said, with the people that you're working with, and find that TAPS group to come in and maybe verify and help you out. And anybody else that might be struggling with something like that, you don't have to struggle alone. Find someone to help you. It definitely helps out to not feel alone in that situation.
As you're writing the first book, Stranger Bridgerland, how long of a period of time were you collecting stories before you published?
Oh, some of those went back as far as when I was 17, 18, when I started interviewing people. And from then all the way up close to that time, what I did was for the first book, I took some of my favorites and some that I definitely had the permission from people to do, and just kind of gathered up my favorite ones and wrote my first book.
All right, let's go to Karen. Karen is calling in from the Buffalo, New York area. Hey, Karen, welcome to the program.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Karen, how are you?
I have an actual short story I wrote to a dream I had about paranormal.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, just to be clear here, is this something that happened to you or something you dreamed?
It's something I dreamed.
Okay, all right.
Okay, it says, I arrive at a very large farmhouse in the middle of Kentucky. The paint is weather-worn and faded and peeling like an old birch tree. The season is fall, and the leaves are all over the ground like candy from a piñata. No nearby neighbors. The yard all around the house is very large and open except for a few trees here and there. The husband and wife are struggling with making a living and are in deep despair over their missing son and family dog. They just disappeared from within the house without a trace. The local police and townspeople think the parents killed them and dumped them somewhere far away and desolate, where they wandered off and nobody was watching. The parents insist he is still in the house, that they hear the boy crying and the dog whimpering. I'm a paranormal investigator and have been requested by the family to try and prove and or disprove their claims. I'm an empath, psychic dreamer, touch know, and will do all I can to help find this child. The husband is a large man in a dirty white shirt and brown work pants, held up around his large middle with a worn brown leather belt. The mother has long brown hair streaked with gray that hasn't seen a salon in decades. She looks tired and older than her 30-something years. We sit on the couch talking about the boy and the disappearance when all of a sudden we hear a dog barking. It seems to be coming from everywhere inside the house, like an echo that just comes from everywhere. I wander about the living room and kitchen trying to pinpoint the barking, trying to get a feel for the animal's presence. In the kitchen, the wife explains she saw an awful creature within the floor looking back at her as if it were looking through a window. The floor is tiled and shiny, so I'm thinking her imagination may have conjured a delusion from a stain or a reflection. As I walk from the kitchen back into the living room, I can feel a tingling in my legs, and then goosebumps shoot up all over me. Instantly, I know there is an evil in the house. I call to the dog loudly as if I were outside, in a demanding, authoritative voice. Suddenly, a small white poodle dog runs out from behind the couch right to me. I move the couch with their help, but nothing is there. No holes, no dog crate, leashes, nothing. I walk around the house calling for the boy, but hear nothing. After a while, I hear him crying faintly, getting weaker and weaker. I keep calling to him. I enter the kitchen, and standing at the sink, as the mother had done before, I look down, and there it is, a weird, bald, slimy, thin creature staring back at me from within the floor. It was then a sudden knowledge came over me, as if sent from its thoughts to mine, that this creature steals life forms to use as batteries to keep them alive. The father runs outside, sobbing. I start yelling for the boy, much more forceful and angry now, demanding they let him go. The more I demand, the more I can feel a power shift inside me. I push harder and yell louder until I'm almost screaming from every fiber of my body. Suddenly, the boy is sitting on the floor in front of me, dark circles under his teary eyes. I snatch him up as fast as I can before those things can change their mind and take him back again. I run outside to his father and thrust the boy at him, tears streaming down my face. I tell him, do not take the boy back in the house. They will take him again, and you will never get him back. Burn that house to the ground. It must be burned, and no other house built on that spot ever again.
So now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was the end.
Oh.
And this was a dream?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Geez, I can't remember like 30 seconds of a dream, or 5 seconds of a dream. You've got a pretty much novel there in a dream.
Yeah, I usually do.
How long ago did you have the dream?
Last year sometime. I keep a book. I write them down.
That's a good practice, especially if you have dreams as vivid as that. Hey, Karen, thanks for sharing that with us. I want to get Brian's take on not just that, but I want to when people share stories like that for you, not Brian, John. When people share stories like that for you, John, is that a common occurrence that people have some of this stuff comes to them in a dream and they share it with you?
You know, I don't have very many stories like that. No, I in fact, in everything that I can think of, I have not had somebody come to me with a story one from a dream. That's very unique.
All right, let's see here. We're gonna let's take one more phone call before we go to break. By the way, if you want to share a story with us, 844-687-7669. Love to hear your paranormal occurrence or someone that you know. This is Mike calling from Missouri. Hey, Mike, welcome to the program.
What's up, guys?
Hey, welcome to the show.
Yeah, so I'd say about 13, 14 years ago, I was riding four-wheelers with my buddy on his farm. His grandfather's farm was right there, and we had this track that we'd roll through and then also go up and around a neighbor's barn. And we did, like, time trials, so like I was going pretty fast. And as I'm topping the hill coming up towards the barn, not even out of my peripheral, just kind of off to the left, right in front of the barn, I see this child. I'd say he's about 12, 13 years old, and he was wearing blue overalls, and he was solid. There was a person there. And so I go around the barn like we normally do, and I cut the engine, and I holler just to see, hey, is anybody on the track? Because I didn't want him playing on the track or whatever if we were coming around there going fast. and I didn't get a response. So I start the motor back up, and I start heading down the hill, and I'd probably say about 25 yards in front of me, a huge, I would say like 10, 12 point buck shoots out of the woods right on the path, right in front of me. And I have to slam on my brakes. I barely missed him. And I'm shook. And I go back up and I hop off the four-wheeler. I tell my friend, it's your turn. And, he doesn't understand what's going on. I'm just like, I almost hit a deer, And later I got the whole story out to him or whatever. And, he didn't know the neighbor too well. And I had asked some family friends about it or whatever, if anybody knew like that property and if there had ever been any tragedies, and no one could say anything about it. But what I can tell you is when I went back there, this was like kind of in the evening. It wasn't dark yet, but it was getting dark. I went back there the next morning, and there was nothing blue around that barn. I mean, there was one rusty tractor and, like a pile of wood, and that was it. Like, there was nothing blue that I could have mistaken for blue overalls. Like, this kid was there. And I don't know if it was a ghost. I don't know if it was a guardian angel, but I truly believe that if that kid hadn't shown himself to me, I would have been right hitting that deer.
Wow.
And to this day, I really think he saved my life because, we weren't just scooting around on that thing. We were going fast. So, that's my story. And that's my only ghost story that I would say the ghost or any kind of apparition or anything that I've ever seen. But, it terrified me at the time, but now looking back on it, I really think, I think that kid saved my life.
Yeah, I think you've got a lot to be thankful and grateful for there, and we're thankful that you shared that story with us, Mike. That's pretty interesting. Guest on is John Olson, and John has been sitting with us patiently here while we take some listener phone calls. John, we're going to try to take one more before our next break, and then we're going to come back to some questions on the other side of this coming up break. This is Jeanette in Illinois. Hey, Jeanette, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, so what's going on?
Okay. This is the first time I've listened to your program. I was looking for a different radio station, and I caught your conversation. And my mother was put to death against her will in the house that I'm living in her bedroom. She was morphine poisoned by the court. It was a wrongful death. And I love my mother, of course, and I had some experiences in the house here. When I was laying in her bedroom, the angel nightlight that I had on was turned off in the morning, and normally I turn it off. That was the beginning of the experiences I had. And then I have security cameras in the house, and I see these white circles flying around the house. And some were large, some were small. And some of them, this one big one was I made like an altar for my mom, her picture and a cross and some flowers with the Bible and a little stuffed musical lamb in her bedroom. And I saw on a security camera, they call them orbs today, and I didn't know that. I'm a minister, and I never had this type of experience before. But this small circle I caught on the security camera was going around the my mother's picture and the cross and the Bible and the lamb, and it was abnormal. It was going real fast at times, then it would slow down and go fast again. And I never seen anything like that. It was very obvious on the camera. And it just so happened that this one attorney about my mom's wrongful death, she was in the paranormal. And she told me that it was called an orb. So I started on the Internet looking about orbs and different experiences. And then one day, I was going to court, and I
was walking out the door, and I forgot my keys. And I ran back in the house, and I went to reach for the keys, and I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was a very loving, comfortable hand. And I knew that it was my mom. I just felt her presence real strong because I felt like I was the only one going through this wrongful death experience. And it was very special to me. I didn't have no fear at all. You know, I felt her presence was still in the house, even though she was absent from the body. But I felt her presence. Her spirit was still, her soul was still in the house. Like she didn't want to die. That I know because I was forced out of the house here by the courts, and they brought my mom into her room, and she was put to death by hospice against her will.
Wow. I'm sorry, Jeanette. We're going to have to go to break here. I just have to say this though. First of all, sorry about your mother, but secondly, that's one of the most comforting and inspiring paranormal encounters that anybody can have, and you should be very, very thankful that you're fortunate enough to have that.
Absolutely. So, all right, we're going to take a break and come back with our guest, John Olson, paranormal investigator. You'll listen to Jason and JV, Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Our guest tonight is John Olson. He's a paranormal investigator. He's written a book called Stranger Bridgerland and Beyond Stranger Bridgerland, the follow-up to that book. The website is strangerbridgerland.com. You can go there and get more information about both of the books and more of John's work. And John, I want to just bring you back to our last caller. What were your thoughts on the story she was telling? Sadly, we're up against a break, so we had to cut her off a little bit. But she was talking about orbs around a bit of a shrine that she created for her mother who went through wrongful death.
It brought up an interesting thought that I had. In my last book, I had a story. It's a personal story, and I went back and forth on whether to put it in the book or not. As an investigator and everything, you have personal stories, and sometimes you're a little afraid to share them, but I decided to put it in the book. And what happened to me, I was in my late 20s, and I was laying in bed. It was an earliest Saturday morning, and my wife at the time was a beautician. She'd got up early to go do bridal hair on Saturday morning, and my son, my oldest, was asleep. He was just a baby on the other side of the house, and I was sitting in bed trying to figure out, do I get up? Do I go? Do I go back to sleep? And there was a knock at my bedroom door. And I said, come in, and my grandmother came in, and she walked over and sat on the edge of my bed, and we had a nice little conversation. She wanted to know how my mother was doing and how the family was, and we talked for a little while, and I stopped, and I looked at her, and I said, Grandma, you passed away 6 months ago. And you're going to have to forgive me because I get a little emotional when I talk about it.
Understandably, yeah.
But she smiled, and she said, that doesn't mean that I can't come visit from time to time. And she got up and said goodbye and went out the door and shut the door. And, for a few minutes, I tried to figure out, was I asleep? Was I awake? But just the feeling and everything that was in the room, I just knew that it was my grandmother that had come to say, talk to me. It was interesting because she had passed away 6 months before, but she lived in Europe, and I was in no financial means to be able to go to the funeral. And it was a great way for me to finally reach closure with her passing. But so the last caller, reminded me of that, and reminded me of a lot of other stories too. That it's not all necessarily scary stuff. Sometimes it's kind of very deep and personal stuff that happens to people.
And that's true. And it's just a great story. Wow.
So let's talk, and I can tell you're a little bit emotional there. I do want to change the subject just a little bit, though. And Jason touched on it before as well. The books are not focused exclusively on ghost stories. There are other types of stories that you tell in those books as well. Give us a few examples of the types of paranormal categories that people might encounter if they read the books.
So, I've had people come to me with all kinds of stories, and I love interviewing them and talking to them about them. I have UFO stories, quite a few UFO stories, Bigfoot stories. I have a few cryptid stories that wouldn't necessarily fall under Bigfoot stories. In my last book, I did a section that I just entitled Glitches in the Matrix, because it was stories that really didn't necessarily apply to ghosts or cryptids or UFOs, but just strange occurrences that have happened to people. And, only in the past 10 years have people started referring to things like that as glitches in the Matrix because of the Matrix movies. But I ended up having a section of those stories as well.
I want to share something very, very quickly. When I was a child, one of my best friends had a little sister who was, 2 or 3 years old at the time, and she used to play in her bedroom and would come down, and I spent a lot of time at this friend's house because our families were very, very close. And she'd come downstairs and she said, "Hey, Mommy, I'm playing with the Shining Lady again today." And she would say this over and over again, for months at a time, that she was in her room playing with the Shining Lady. And a couple months into this, my friend's father fell asleep on the couch in the same home, woke up in the middle of the night, and he saw a woman in white glowing basically in front of him, which kind of told him who the Shining Lady was. Do kids have a propensity to see this stuff more often than maybe adults do, or experience it first? Is there any difference between what a kid will see versus what an adult will?
I believe, especially in interviewing people and talking to them, I think kids are more open to that. Maybe the veil is thinner for them, and they're able to see, things that we can't as we're older. But I definitely think that children are prone to seeing the other side, if that makes sense. I've collected several stories of people who said that they had imaginary friends when they were younger, and then found out that there was a child that matched that description that had passed away, in the house or something of that nature. But yeah, I definitely believe that.
Well, and we talk about that often on this show, where children are more open than adults. It's to a child, anything's possible, and it's not until we start telling them that their invisible friend's not real that we start conditioning them to our belief system, and that shuts them down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is for sure. And also, if people who have a home, one of the things that I believe, as I grew up and was experiencing things, even though my parents' best efforts and what they thought were doing right was to shut that down and say, no, it's not haunted, or, don't talk about it, it can kind of stifle a kid. It can help them not cope with it well, because they have to cope with it on their own. But recognizing that and being able to allow them to talk about it and helping them understand, I think is great for kids.
All right, let's go to another listener call. This is Mary, who's also in Utah. Hey, Mary, welcome to the program.
Hi.
Hey,
so my question is for John. I'm also from Utah, and I'm just curious if he has ever had any experiences with Hobbs Hollow.
I have not. No, I have not had any experiences with those. I'd love to hear what you've heard, though.
Well, we actually have been up there a couple of different times. The story with that is that in the 70s, there was a wild weather incident that caused a whole lot of undertows in the lake up there, and it caused several people to die and drowned, unfortunately. If you go, you can usually get EVPs of screams and people calling for help. It's a pretty wild place up there. I highly suggest you go.
Mary, have you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What was the name of that again? I'm sorry.
It's Hobbs Hollow.
Hobbs Hollow. Okay.
Mary, did you say that you've done some of this investigative work yourself? Caught some EVPs and that kind of?
Yeah, I have. We've been up there several different times. It's pretty crazy.
Wow. And I'm not familiar with the geography of Utah very much, but where are we talking about this particular location in terms of Bridgerland that we've been speaking about tonight?
It is in Ogden, just off of Highway 89. You just have to go up there. It's a private walkway. You just go up. There's a little bit of a lake on the left, and there's forest on the right. And you just kind of hang up in there. But it's pretty quiet. It's crazy.
So is it part of that? Is it part of that area known as Bridgerland?
I'm not sure.
I think it's just a little
I've never
bit
heard of that area referred to that.
Okay, I'm sorry. You said, John, it's just a little south of it?
Yeah, just a little south of that. Down, I know exactly where she's talking about, though, but it is just a little bit south of the three counties of where my first book is part of with Bridgerland. But yeah, I do understand exactly what she's talking about. So.
Well, thanks for the tip, and thank you for the phone call, Mary. We appreciate it very, very much. We only have a few more minutes with you, John. You, the second book was released recently?
Yeah, in September, the 1st of September.
And are you working on another one?
I am, yeah. I'm already working on the third book. I have a ton of stories, and I've been actually spending quite a bit of time interviewing new people, and so I'll keep going as long as the stories keep going.
Well, John, tell me about. Have there been a lot of Bigfoot sightings in this area in Utah?
Yeah, there is actually. In fact, it's interesting because when I pull out a map of the Cache National Forest, which is the forest that's kind of the main part in Cache Valley, people who have come to me and given me their stories about Bigfoot, I can draw a circle around where a lot of these people have seen it. So it's really concentrated in a few areas. And I find that interesting because these people don't know each other, don't know necessarily of the other people's experiences, but it all ends up being in about 25, 30-mile radius. So I find that really, really fascinating.
Interesting.
The area, obviously the whole western part of the United States has a deep tradition in Native American cultures. Does that lend itself to any of this paranormal activity in any way?
It really does, because I have one story in my newest book of a gentleman who was on a hike, spent the night alone on a mountain called Mount Naomi, and he came into contact with a creature in the middle of the night it was about 4 feet tall, green, gray in color, wore homemade old clothes, 8 ears, pointy features on his face, and I mean, he really was frightened by this, which anybody would be. And when he came to me with this story and I recorded it, it kind of piqued my curiosity as to, because I'd never really heard anything about this before. So I started delving into it and come to find out that the Native Americans have speak of these creatures, and they call them the Pagwaji, is one of the names that one of the tribes use. And they explain exactly what he did, what he saw. These creatures live in the mountains. They like to steal things, cause trouble. And it was just very interesting to connect the Native American lore to something that had happened to somebody fairly recently.
That name, unless I misunderstood what you said, sounds a lot like Pagwaji, which...
Yeah.
It's the same, basically the same thing?
Utah accent.
Yeah, okay, all right. So I'm familiar with that creature.
Yes.
So as you assemble this third book, are you expanding the geography that you're looking in? And how do people submit stories to you if they want to, try to be shared?
So, I'm actually expanding. I take stories. I've actually, on this new one, because of my books, I've gotten some stories as far away as Texas now. And if anybody's interested in contacting me with a story, on my Stranger Bridgerland site, there's a place there to submit a contact information and everything, and so you can get a hold of me that way, and I can set up an interview, and I'm collecting as far as I can, and I just love hearing the stories and getting people's stories from all over.
Now, John, do you actually get out there and investigate, or do you pretty much just take people's stories in now?
I do a few investigations now and then. A lot of it is interviewing people. The people who have come to me and said, "Oh, my house is haunted," I may send them to a group that has, the actual more equipment if that's necessary. But a lot of times I'll find that if I go and talk to them and figure out what's going on, we can try and get them some help that way. But there are definitely places that I've gone when I get a story and I want to go there and experience or see what they're talking about. I definitely get out there in the field and find out what I can.
All right, John, we've got just a couple minutes left, and I've got two questions related to a single topic. The topic is Halloween. My first question is, do you think that any of this activity picks up when we are in or around the Halloween season? And my second question is, what are your plans on Halloween?
I think it does pick up a little bit, but I think it's also the fact that people are more aware of it this time of year. I know for us that investigate and deal with it a lot, it's Halloween year-round. But for a lot of people, this is when they actually look for it. They like to go out and learn the stories or go to haunted houses and get scared. So I think they're just more aware of it at this time of year. And mine, I'm basically going to do a couple interviews with a few people that night and take my youngest son trick-or-treating and just kind of enjoy the evening with, different fun things to do like that.
And that's definitely what it's all about, enjoying that family time. But when it does come down to this time of the year, though, it seems like claims of activity seem to rise drastically, but upon investigating a lot of it, you find out that most of it is just because most people have spent the summer out of the house. Now it's getting darker earlier. They're in the house. The heat's turning on. Moisture's popping from the wood. You're getting the banging in the walls from the pipes. So I guess a lot of the claims really don't fall under actually legit paranormal activity, correct?
Well, some of it definitely not. I think that, like you say, they're spending more time in the house. The heat's kicking on. It's colder at night, warmer day, cold at night. You get the creaking, the popping, and people are watching more scary movies. The TV has more scary shows on, and I think they're more hyper aware of what's going on around them, and so you might see a spike because of that kind of activity.
Yeah, I agree.
John, thanks so much for being with us tonight. Again, the website is Bridgerland.com, and the book is Stranger Bridgerland and Beyond Stranger Bridgerland, the follow-up to the book. And we appreciate you being on the show tonight.
Hey, thank you guys so much. It's been great.
Yeah, you have a great night, John. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, come back and wrap things up. You're listening to Jason and JV, Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Tomorrow night, Bruce the Shark will be in for Jason and I, and he's going to be
Bruce the Shark.
He's going to be talking to Tom Hatzis. Tom is a psychedelic historian and an educator, and they're going to be talking about a whole bunch of pretty interesting things, because I remember when we had Tom on the program, I don't know, about a year ago, whenever it was.
Yeah, that was an interesting night.
It was a very interesting night.
Yeah, it's I don't know. We won't even bring it up. Anyways, but hey, if you haven't yet, head over to Facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio. Like that Facebook page for us. Then head to BeyondRealityRadio.com, where you can find all the stations we are on across the country. It's constantly being updated, so check it often. You can also download the smartphone apps, which allow you to listen live to the show, catch past shows, join the chat, and all that on the go. And also, you can listen any night we're live right from the website. Just clicking the Listen Live tab or the Listen Live and Chat tab, and listen right there while browsing the rest of the internet or hanging out in a great chat room with people. Just do us a favor and take 2 seconds if you could and just rate the show on iTunes for us. It helps push the show forward, makes it easier for people to find, and that's what it's all about. There's my spiel. So
it's a good
all
one.
Right. Yeah, I liked it. So, all right, everybody, that's going to do it for us. It's Jason and JV, Beyond Reality Radio. We'll catch you all soon.
Beyond Reality Radio is hosted by Jason Hawes and JV Johnson and produced by Alexandria Johnson and Slick Eddie Edwards for Entercom Radio. Beyond Reality Radio is distributed by Westwood One Radio Networks. Stop by our Facebook page and say hello. Follow the hosts on Facebook as well. For Jason Hawes, follow at jasonhawes.taps. For JV Johnson, follow at JVJ Paranormal. If you'd like to be a guest on Beyond Reality Radio or you have a suggestion for a guest, contact Slick Eddie Edwards at slickeddieedwards@gmail.com. Be sure to visit our chat room as well at beyondrealityradio.com. Thanks for listening.